continuing on with the Sparkle Bridge Palette series. So what is this series? It's for people who receive a professional color analysis result and really want it to be another palette, and the professional result they received is a bit trying for them to sort of dive into. They don't want to jump into it. But if you've received a professional color analysis result, my advice will always be to try out that result, because you could be pleasantly surprised. But let's say you are really stuck in your ways or really like a particular palette, this series is for you. And in this video, I'm going to be covering what if you received a true autumn result and really wanted to be a different palette. So I've so far covered true winter, true spring, and true summer, so you can go back to those videos in this series. This one is for true autumns. If you've received a professional result of true autumn, but you really wanted to be a true spring, or were really attached to true spring colors, you may want to try out the warm palette, which is the palette exactly midway between spring and autumn. Now, my advice would be to focus on more of the darker and softer colors in this palette if you were comfortable embracing some of your true autumn palette. You also might want to try out the lighter and brighter colors over here as well, because ultimately these colors, if professionally color analyzed, were assessed to be your best. To look at if you wanted to be a true summer but received a true autumn result. Oh my goodness, look at my pen cover. Can you tell that I play with my pens? Anyways, so you really wanted to be a true summer, you received a true autumn result. My advice would be to potentially look at the muted palette, which is the palette between autumn and summer. And if you are okay with it, focus more on the darker and warmer colors on this palette. And maybe if you really wanted to really test these out, you could focus on the more softer or smoky colors on this palette, the tones from this palette. Here's a look at, you received a true autumn result. I'm gonna flip this pen around. Where you received a true autumn result, but you wanted to be a true winter or really love true winter colors. My advice would be to look at the deep palette, which is the palette between autumn and winter, and maybe focus on the warmer colors in this palette as a tester. And if you were okay with jumping over here a bit, you might want to try out the darker colors in this palette. And again, ultimately, professionally, these were assessed to be your best. Here's a look at, you received a true autumn result, but really wanted to be a muted palette, muted autumn, muted summer, true muted. You might want to get a muted strip and focus on the warmer colors on this strip, and perhaps the softer colors on here, which would be the tones. Here's a look at, you received a true autumn result, but really wanted to be a warm autumn, warm spring, true warm. I would get yourself a warm color strip and use that in combination with your true autumn strip. So on here you might want to choose the darker and softer colors, and on here you might want to choose the lighter and brighter colors of the true autumn palette. Here's a look at, you received a true autumn result, but you really wanted to be a deep autumn, deep winter, true deep. I would get a deep color strip and focus on the warmer colors in this strip. And if you were comfortable jumping over some, grab some of the darker colors in this strip, which is the true autumn strip. Now here's really wide difference territory. So you received a true autumn result, but you really wanted to be a light spring, light summer, true light. I really had to think about this one. So the first option I came up with is the muted palette, which is the palette between autumn and summer. So this is the palette between autumn, sorry, goofed up my words. This is the palette between summer and spring. And so grabbing the muted palette, you'd keep the summer element, so perhaps you would focus more on the warmer colors over here. So this is neutral undertone range, and so is this. So this brings you closer to the True Autumn palette. But if you were okay with embracing some of your warmth, you might want to try out some of the warmer colors in the warm palette to bring in some of the spring qualities over here. This one's a little bit complicated to come up with a bridge palette, but those were the two options I came up with. Another bridge, which is really safe here, but it's not really close to True Autumn, as you see, is the universal palette. So the universal palette is neutral undertone, medium value, medium intensity. So it's a combination, in essence, of all 4 seasons. So if you wanted to test out this one, I would grab more of, or focus more on the warmer and softer colors on this strip that are more in harmony with True Autumn. This one's interesting too. So here's, you got a True Autumn result, but you really wanted to be a bright spring, bright winter, true bright. Another one I really had to think about. So again, a universal palette would be the option for a bridge and focus on more of the warm and autumn light colors on this strip would be one option. The second option I came up with, if you were okay with embracing some of your warmth, it still has a brightness to it that's brighter than True Autumn, would be to focus on the darker and softer colors of the warm palette. This is again the palette between autumn and spring. Here's a look at, you received a True Autumn result, but you really wanted to be a cool summer, cool winter, true cool. Another interesting one, again, I brought out the universal palette, which brings you neutral range, undertone, you know, and brings in all 4 seasons. So stick to the autumn aspects of the universal palette would be my advice. Another option is to look at, you know, this, what is this? So the cool palette is a combination of winter and summer coloring. So if you wanted to embrace more of the winter coloring of the cool palette, you might want to consider getting a deep palette. This is the palette between autumn and winter, and brings in neutral undertone range here. My advice would be to stick to more of the autumn colors on this strip. And another option, which I had to think about, is bring out the muted palette. So again, this has summer elements in it. So this is the palette between autumn and summer. And so you might want to consider this as well and focus more on the autumn colors in this strip, which is more warm and darker. And this is also neutral range as well. Hopefully this video helps people processing True Autumn results and moving to their True Autumn results. As always, every product that you see on the screen here is available in the products area on my site. We also have digital downloads of all these products.